Yep, for sure. Hey, good evening, everyone. My name is Kevin Olson. I'm a recovered alcoholic. I want to welcome you all to the fourth dimension.
Big book
Big
study,
book
baby.
study, that is. I'm glad you guys are all here. I know I'm certainly glad I'm here. I never feel more alive than when I'm sharing the miracle of God's recovery through the program of Alcoholics Anonymous that we access through the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous that I discovered in a book called Alcoholics Anonymous. And let's share that book together today, shall we? As we always do, we're going to kick off with the set-aside prayer. It goes a little something like this. Sing along if you know the words. God, please help me to set aside everything I think I know about you, about me, about my fellow man, and about the 12 steps. And please allow me to gain a fresh, new vision, perspective, and understanding of what you, what me, what my fellow man, and the 12 steps are all about. Amen. And as this is the fourth dimension big book study, I always like to read the two parts of our book that refer to the fourth dimension. So first, on page 8, Bill Wilson writes, I was soon to be catapulted into what I like to call the fourth dimension of existence. I was to know happiness, peace, and usefulness in a way of life that is incredibly more wonderful as time passes. And then, on page 25, Bill Wilson writes that we have found much of heaven, and we have been rocketed into a fourth dimension of existence of which we had not even dreamed. All right, brothers and sisters, we're going to be catapulted. We're going to be rocketed. And for the sake of the tradition and custom of the fourth dimension big book study, everyone and will please put one hand up like this. I'm going to try that again. Everyone, please put one hand up like this. All right, and everybody please put another hand up like this. And everybody go, oh, yeah. All right. I never get tired of it. I never get tired of it. We absolutely insist on enjoying life, and I highly recommend you do as well. It's entirely optional, but it's strongly suggested. So, in terms of, in that strongly suggested, I want to share something with you. This great phrase, I encourage you to consider, then whatever I encourage you to consider. Okay, it's great. It works. It's like a Swiss Army knife. It's like multi-tool applications. Okay, I encourage you to consider, and then whatever it is you're insisting your sponsee do. I encourage you to consider. Okay, another great one at 1835 House. They used to counselors used to say, what you might want to take a look at is so on, whatever it is. Anyway, tonight, guys, we are on step 9. We'll do a very quick review of step 8, and then we'll get right into it, man. We'll get right into making amends and step 9. And step 9 to me is one of the most miraculous steps in our whole deal, man, and the whole program of action that we have in Alcoholics Anonymous. With the possible exception of step 12, I will say I cannot think of any step that is harder to do and yet has a stronger spiritual return on investment. Okay. And I really think, man, part of the reason for that, when we talk about the cycle of alcoholism, okay, we go through that, we become restless, irritable, and discontent. We are unable to then distinguish the true from the false. We believe the lie. We pick up the drink. We trigger the allergy. We enter the well-known stages of a spree, emerging remorseful with a firm resolution not to drink again. And this is repeated over and over. Okay. And one of the things that I want you guys to understand, or that we've gone through a lot, is the pain that I caused myself during that spree, knowing that I hurt everyone I loved again, and that I destroyed everything I ever cared about again, and I did it again and again and again. The pain of that did not make me want to get sober. The pain of that and the guilt and the shame and regret and remorse made me want to get loaded more than anything. Raise your hand if you're with me on that. You guys understand what I mean by that? And that's one of the differences, I believe, between hard drinkers and real alcoholics. Okay. Hard drinkers, they see that. They're like, man, I'm going to lose my wife. Man, I got a DUI. Man, my doctor said to stop. And they do. And they never have to get a sponsor. They never have to find God. They never have to come to AA. They never have to drink terrible coffee in a church basement. They never have to do any of that. Okay. They just stop. We, on the other hand, live in that pain and that guilt and that shame and that remorse. And that continually takes me back to picking up a drink again. Therein lies the magic of step 9. That Alcoholics Anonymous did not just compel me to get sober and then teach me how to live comfortably within the mess that I've created. Dr. Silkworth says alcoholics, their problems pile up on them and become astonishingly difficult to solve. Okay. And when I get sober, I'm covered in these problems. We talked about the analogy of the station wagon. Okay. When I'm drinking, it's like I'm driving 200 miles an hour down the highway and I'm just throwing garbage in the back seat. And I get sober, I slam on those brakes and all of that garbage comes forward into the front seat. And now I'm covered in it. Okay. And I don't know how to stay sober, covered in that mess. Thank God, Alcoholics Anonymous gave me a way not to just live with the mess. It gave me a way to clean up the mess. And what an absolutely revolutionary, transformational experience that was and continues to be in my life. That I got to clean up all of the things that I felt the same guilt and shame and regret over, that made me feel restless, irritable, and discontent, that ultimately continued to take me back to drinking again and again and again. Okay. And that's why I think step 9 is one of the most essential steps for us. How many times do I hear people say, oh, I tried AA and it didn't work. I've been to AA. Oh yeah? Did you do the steps? Oh yeah. Yeah, I did the steps. Really? Really? Did you really do the steps, or did you go to a treatment center, do a half-ass step 4, a dishonest step 5, hit the street again, and you were gone? Never had any experience whatsoever in steps 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. Can't tell you how many times I hear that. Okay. And even if they have some experience in step 9 because they were forced to in the treatment center that they went to, or stayed sober for years, but never did this deal and then got sick again and went crazy and got drunk again. Okay. Step 9 is key. And it's really, I think, one of the most transformational turning points for many people in Alcoholics Anonymous. So with that said, guys, let's do, we read through a little bit last week, and I want to do just a quick refresh on step 8, the actions of step 8, tactically how we develop this step 8 list. Can you guys see my screen right now? Thumbs up if you can see it, please. All right. So what we're going to do, we're going to make a list of all people we have harmed. Okay. And I talked about that last week. I made just the list. I just wrote them all out. Okay. And then my sponsor came over and taught me how to break them down into these lists. Okay. At the beginning of step 9 in the 12 and 12, it says courage, prudence, a good judgment, and a careful sense of timing. These are the qualities we will need if we're going to engage in step 9. Okay. Well, thank God the prudence and the good judgment ought to come from my sponsor. Okay. And by the way, I'll say by this point of my recovery, I am assuming you have a sponsor. If you are on steps 8 and 9 and do not have a sponsor, I encourage you to consider stopping now. Okay. Do not proceed whatsoever until you go get anyone who is not you to help you continue through this process. The purpose of a sponsor is to give me judgment and clarity without any emotion attached to these plans or these ideas, especially around step 9. Go get a sponsor. It is assumed by this point you have a sponsor. Okay. My sponsor taught me how to break that list down into an indication of my current level of willingness. Right now, later, maybe, and never. Okay. And then, as we said last week, we always want to make amends face to face, eyeball to eyeball, as my sponsor said. Of course, there can be exceptions. Yes. I remember I had a sponsee one time who lived in, his mom was in Ireland and he was not going to be able to see her for a long time, but the guilt that he felt about his mom, anyway, you can imagine. So in that sense, at that time, I allowed him to do his amend over Zoom. He has since made it face to face. That's the caveat there. I will allow you to do it in Zoom if you agree that at your first opportunity to do it face to face, you will do it again face to face. Okay. So with that in mind, right now, later, maybe never, we need to break that down geographically for every of the geographic towns or cities or countries that we might owe amends in. Okay. And then also we talked last week about making our first financial inventory and doing that here. Every time I write down a name, if I have an amount of money that I owe, I will write that down. Okay. So it might be my brother, I owed $500. My parents, I owed $10,000, or Bank of Montreal, I have that line of credit that I haven't paid back for, a long time, and I owe them, or whatever it is. Okay. I promise you, it is better written down on the page than living in my head. Okay. When I came to AA, I had, to me at that time, a massive amount of debt, a massive amount, more than I could ever have imagined paying back. And it was at 19% compound interest. And the interest was accruing faster than I could make income. Like I was dead in the water. Okay. And I was going to commit suicide over that amount of debt. Okay. And if you're here tonight and you're feeling that financial strain and you're in debt and you have no idea how you're ever going to get out of it, I'm here to tell you we have a way out. Okay. But the first thing I have to do is get honest and real about it. And I have to write it out. I got to write it down, man. Write it down. It is much better on this piece of paper than it is in my head. Okay. Because that debt preyed on my mind like a mantis day in and day out. And we're going to talk about that here in a minute. Okay. So that's the step 8 list. We make the list, then categorize it right now, later, maybe never. And then we want one for each separate geography. So maybe some in Calgary, some for me in 2 other small towns here in my province of Canada that I live in. For others, I always joke, there's a lot of people that seem to owe amends in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico. I don't know why that would be. A lot of people seem to owe amends in Las Vegas, but who knows? But anyway, that's the reality of it. Okay. So that's a crash course in step 8. So now let's get into step 9. What I want to do is go through the reading for step 9. My man Brad is here. Yes, sir. Great to have you. Thank you, Brad, for joining us. And Brad, if you'd be kind enough to read again. And let's start. Let's just start on page 76. And as I said last week, and I strongly believe, when I am in doubt in AA and I don't know what to do and I don't know what direction to turn, the answer is always the first 3 words of the 3rd paragraph of page 76. Okay. And those words are, now we need more action. What do we need? More action. When do we need it? Now. Now, more action. Not tomorrow. What do we need? More action. When do we need it? Now. All right. Beautiful. So Brad, with that in mind, guys, now we need more action. Page 76. Let's go through this reading, and then, presuming we can get through this in a reasonable amount of time, then we will talk tactically about how to do a step 9. When we're in the room, when we're with the person, how do we engage? What do we do? And I will teach you guys as I was taught by my sponsor. And I've taught this to many, many people over the years, and I'm pleased to be sharing it with you tonight as well. Brad, if you would, now we need more action.
All right. Hey, everybody. Brad, alcoholic. Now we need more action, without which we find that faith without works is dead. Let's look at steps 8 and 9. We have a list of all the persons we have harmed and to whom we are willing to make amends. We made it when we took inventory. We subjected ourselves to a drastic self-appraisal. Now we go out to our fellows and repair the damage done in the past. We attempt to sweep away the debris which has accumulated out of our effort to live on self-will and run the show ourselves. If we haven't the will to do this, we ask until it comes. Remember, it was agreed at the beginning we would go to any lengths for victory over alcohol.
Okay, so two things there, real quick. As I indicated last week, but I just want to mention it again for anyone who wasn't here. Our book says now we go out in terms of step 9. Now we go out. Okay, and we often I have heard times in AA club rooms, God will put these people in my path in his time. Okay. I don't need to go chase these people down. Okay. I'm not going to argue with anyone. I'm just going to point out that's not what our book says. Okay. Our book says now we go out. Why? Because my life depends on this. My life depends upon sweeping away the debris that is accumulated out of my effort to live in self-will. Okay. Our book says we go out. I engage with these people in step 9. Okay. And then the other thing I want to point out here is, it says we have the list. We made it when we took inventory. Well, yes and no. Okay. Most of the people on my step 8 list were on my step 4. That is accurate. But as I told the story last week with Barry, the counselor at 1835, there are going to be people on my step 8 list that were not on my step 4. People I harmed that I had no resentment towards, no fear about, no sex conduct with, or anything like that, yet I harmed them. They go on my step 8 list as well. Okay. And on the step 8 list also is included, as I said, banks and cell phone providers that I just ghosted on, and payday loan stores and Revenue Canada or the IRS in the United States. I'm not sure, Scott. I don't know what you all have in Thailand there, but I imagine you pay taxes of some kind. So, so whoever it is, they would go on the list. And Scott, it's nice to see you as well. Welcome from Thailand. Happy Wednesday morning to you. All right, let's continue on, Brad.
Probably there are still some misgivings. As we look over the list of business acquaintances and friends we have hurt, we may feel diffident about going to some of them on a spiritual basis. Let us be reassured. To some people, we need not and probably should not emphasize the spiritual feature on our first approach. We might prejudice them. At the moment, we are trying to put our lives in order, but this is not an end in itself. Our real purpose is to fit ourselves to be of maximum service to God and to the people about us. It is seldom wise to approach an individual who still smarts from our injustice to him and announce that we have gone religious. In the prize ring, this would be called leading with the chin. Why lay ourselves open to being branded fanatics or religious bores? We may kill a future opportunity to carry a beneficial message, but our man is sure to be impressed with a sincere desire to set right the wrong. He is going to be more interested in a demonstration of goodwill than in our talk of spiritual discoveries. We don't use this as an excuse for shying away from the subject of God. When it will serve any good purpose, we are willing to announce our convictions with tact and common sense. The question of how to approach the man we hated will arise. It may be he has done us more harm than we have done him, and though we may have acquired a better attitude toward him, we are still not too keen about admitting our faults. Nevertheless, with a person we dislike, we take the bit in our teeth. It is harder to go to an enemy than to a friend, but we find it much more beneficial to us. We go to him in a helpful and forgiving spirit, confessing our former ill feeling and expressing our regret.
Okay, so I just want to point out, man, that this is why the steps are in order. Okay, because I can't go make amends to somebody if I'm still harboring that resentment to them, or at least if that resentment hasn't softened to some degree. Okay, because I'm going to screw it all up. Okay. And in terms of making amends, like one of the things, that we can't do is go and say like, here's what I did, but the reason I did it is because you did this and this and this and this, like it's not going to really convey a spiritual message of recovery. Okay. So I have to find some measure of forgiveness. Okay. And it may be that that person has done more harm to me than I've done to them, and I'm sure that's, possible, although I doubt it. Okay. I'm guessing at the front of a step 4, it looks a lot like that person harmed me more than I harmed them. My guess is if I did an honest and thorough step 4 and 5, my sponsor and the power of God and the power of steps 4 and 5 and the power of inventory has changed my perception of the situation in reality. And I start to see that, man, I'm actually at fault here. I put myself in that position to be hurt, and I actually stepped on their toes and they just retaliated, seemingly without provocation, but we invariably find. So my point here, guys, is that the steps are in order for a reason. What step do we engage in learning a process of how to pray for the people that harmed us and find some level of forgiveness and understanding and compassion for them? Take a look at where we are to blame. Steps 4 and 5. I go through that process, start to understand what my defects of character are, ask God to remove these defects of character, because if I don't go through that process, then I'm just the same dirtbag that I always was, going back and trying to make amends for the things I did that harmed someone. Okay. And part of what we're going to talk about today is that amend doesn't mean saying I'm sorry. Making amends means changing. Okay. And showing them that I have changed, and giving them evidence of change. Okay. And looking to change the relationship and looking to fix the wrong that I have done through the change that has occurred in me through the power of God and the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. And if I don't go through 4, 5, 6, and 7 first, then it doesn't make much sense for me to go to apologize to someone for being a horse thief if I'm still a horse thief. You guys see what I'm saying? Okay. And that's why we go through that process first. Back to you, Brad.
Under no condition do we criticize such a person or argue. Simply, we tell him that we will never get over drinking until we have done our utmost to straighten out the past. We are here to sweep off our side of the street, realizing that nothing worthwhile can be accomplished until we do so, never trying to tell him what he should do. His faults are not discussed. We stick to our own. If our manner is calm, frank, and open, we will be gratified with the result. In 9 cases out of 10, the unexpected happens. Sometimes the man we are calling upon admits his own fault, so feuds of years standing melt away in an hour. Rarely do we fail to make satisfactory progress. Our former enemies sometimes praise what we are doing and wish us well. Occasionally, they will offer assistance. It should not matter. However, if someone does throw us out of his office, it should not matter, however, if someone does throw us out of his office. We have made our demonstration, done our part. It's water over the dam.
Yeah, and I will tell you that's my experience, man. 9 times out of 10. About 9 times out of 10 are, whether they're former enemies or not, people just wish us well, okay? And 1 time out of 10, they can be some difficult conversations. They can be painful sometimes, okay? But we're going to talk about that pain and the transformative power that part of step 9 can have on changing my character, my defects of my character, because I believe and I have been taught that that's what God is really interested in. God is really interested in changing our character and allowing us to become the men and women that God would have us be. And it's by going through the step 9 process, as painful as it can be, that 1 time out of 10, to hear those things and how I hurt people, and to get that feedback that no, everything is not, all sunbeams and lollipops now, and so on. Hearing those things and hearing how I harm people can be some of the most powerful things that I'll ever hear relative to step 6 and 7. I'll talk more about that in a little bit. So now step 9 can really be broken down into a few different parts. And right now we're going to talk about money. And this is what I was talking about earlier. debt and what do we do about our debt and what do we do about creditors and so on. And one of the things I want to point out, guys, this is how serious this is. Okay. So like, word up. There are 3 places in our book where it says, if I don't get this right, I am going to drink again. There's only 3 places. One is if I don't change my sex conduct in step 4. The second is if I deliberately leave something off of my 5th step. It says we're never going to get over drinking. And the third is if I continue to dodge my creditors. Okay? That's the 3rd place in our book. We're going to read it right now. So, sex conduct and debtors and our debtors and being in debt, sex and money. Those are the things that alcoholics drink over. Okay. So let's go through it.
Most alcoholics owe money. We do not dodge our creditors. Telling them what we are trying to do, we make no bones about our drinking. They usually know it anyway, whether we think so or not. Nor are we afraid of disclosing our alcoholism on the theory it may cause financial harm. Approached in this way, the most ruthless creditor will sometimes surprise us. Arranging the best deal we can, we let these people know we are sorry. Our drinking has made us slow to pay. We must lose our fear of creditors no matter how far we have to go, for we are liable to drink if we are afraid to face them. Perhaps we have committed a criminal offense.
Oh, sorry, Brad. I'm gonna jump in. Yeah. I'm gonna jump in and just talk. I'll try to make it very brief about my experience with being in debt. As I mentioned, I was in a lot of debt. And, one of the first things I had to do was just get honest about it and stop running away. I was getting like 5 phone calls a day from creditors and trying to stay sober, man. And that's a really uncomfortable place to be. When you're getting 5 phone calls a day from me, Visa and MasterCard and so on. And one of the things I'll say, man, is like, they really appreciate it when you answer the phone. They really appreciate it. Okay. And I have to stop dodging creditors. Answer the phone. Okay. I need to talk with my sponsor. I need to go through this process. I need to find out and realize and get honest about how much money I owe. Okay. And then I need to start answering that phone. Okay. And it says, there's nothing wrong with, disclosing our alcoholism on the theory that it may, we don't need to be afraid of disclosing our alcoholism on the thing it'll cause financial harm. But the other thing is, like, I don't get out of jail free card just because I decided to get sober. So don't be surprised when MasterCard, it's nice to hear that you're sober now, Mr. Olson, but, okay. So I'm just going to share with y'all what I did. God, I believe, puts angels in our path, and God put an angel in my path, and the angel, he was not a member of AA or anything like that. His name was Ken, and Ken was a bankruptcy trustee. Okay. And as scared and humiliated and as embarrassed as I was to have to go see a bankruptcy trustee, that's what I did. And I will tell you, I am today probably his best client. And I don't mean just because he worked on my case. I mean because I have sent literally dozens of other people in Alcoholics Anonymous to Ken, because, well, I feel myself getting emotional right now. That guy, he was so nice and so kind and so helpful, and he never made me feel bad about myself a single time. And he just said, this is all going to be fine. We're going to get this worked out. And I had to go, man. And you want to talk about like the full Monty? Like, I had to go and do the financial, like everything, man. Everything. Student loans and taxes and credit cards and cell phones. We put it all out on the table. And here's what I'm going to tell you. Ken will do one of 3 things. And he's done all of these things with my sponsees before. The first is he'll take a look at how much they owe and then how much money they're making. And sometimes he'll say, you're not really in that bad a shape. You just need to start paying your bills. and he'll help them sort out a plan. And that's what they do. And some of them, it's like full stop, put on the emergency brake. You are a full blown bankruptcy. No question. You need to declare bankruptcy right now, today. What he did with me was a middle road, and it's called a consumer proposal. And I owed all this money and there was no chance. And so what he does is goes back to negotiate on behalf of on my behalf to the people that I owed money to. And he said, here's this kid. At that time, I was a kid. I was like 25, I think. He said, here's how much money this kid owes. And here's how much money he's making. He is never going to get on top of this. And he will declare bankruptcy in about a year's time. And if that happens, you get nothing. So let's do this instead. What Ken did is renegotiated the overall amount down to like less than half of what it originally was. And they take the interest off. That's a consumer proposal. No more interest on it. You have an amount and you pay it off every month, every month, every month, every month. What's the downside? The downside is you get an R7 credit rating. Okay. R8 is a bankruptcy. R7 credit rating, you don't get a credit card and they take that all away and you don't get to have credit for a while. But that cleaned up my life. That cleaned up my financial life completely. And I remember vividly, I mean, I would have to go every month and pay it in person. I'd have to go do all that. And it turned out to be like a Wednesday night, the same night as Primary Purpose Group. This is many, many, many years ago now. It was a Wednesday night. That was the last day that I paid it off. And I went from paying that off. I went right to Primary Purpose Group, my home group, the happiest place on earth, spiritual Disneyland. And I just cried, man. I just cried. I sat in the meeting and cried. I couldn't believe it. Okay. And if you're here and you're wondering, like, what do I do? There is hope. There are ways out. We don't have to dodge our creditors. Okay. And we can find a way out of that debt. Okay. And know that you're not alone. And many people struggle with that. Many people with many, 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 many years sober struggle with that. Okay. And if you need help, I am here to help. We are here to help. Please do not commit suicide over your debt. Okay. There is a way out. And it takes prudence and courage and good judgment and a careful sense of timing, but we can help you work through that. Okay. So that's something I like to share every time we go through this, because it was a turning point in my life. Now we're going to talk about legal stuff. Okay. We're going to talk about legal, a criminal record. How do we deal with legal consequences of our drinking and so on? So I'll suggest in your book where it says most alcoholics owe money, write money. Okay. Where it says perhaps we've committed a criminal offense, write legal. So when you're going through this stuff with your sponsee, you know when he's got a legal problem, he's got a money problem, you know where to go in step 9. Okay. Back to you, Brad. Thank you.
Perhaps we have committed a criminal offense which might land us in jail if it were known to the authorities. We may be short in our accounts and unable to make good. We have already admitted this in confidence to another person, but we are sure we'd be imprisoned or lose our job if it were known. Maybe it's only a petty offense such as padding the expense account. Most of us have done that sort of thing. Maybe we are.
By the way, there's only one place in the world I've ever heard this phrase, padding the expense account, and that's in Alcoholics Anonymous. Okay. Anywhere else in the world, this is theft from an employer. Okay. It's embezzlement. That's what it's called. Okay. And so it needs to be treated seriously. Okay. It's not, a small petty thing, as Bill Wilson says. It's actually a big deal. Okay, if you have been stealing money from your employer on your expenses, we can work through it, but it needs to be addressed. Okay, because it's either addressed by me or it will be addressed down the road. And if I'm living, and again, guys, if I'm living in fear about, man, I did that and I wonder if they're ever going to find out. I wonder if they're ever going to catch me. I wonder if accounting is ever going to do an audit. I wonder. I might stay sober, man, but I'm never going to feel spiritual peace living that way. You guys know what I mean? Like that kind of stuff just eats me alive, man. At 3 o'clock in the morning, tossing and turning, wondering if this is the week I'm gonna get caught. No, man. No way. We would clean that stuff up. Sorry, Brad, back to you.
It's all right. Maybe we are divorced and have remarried, but haven't kept up the alimony to number one. She is indignant about it and has a warrant out for our arrest. That's a common form of trouble, too. Although these reparations take innumerable forms, there are some general principles which we find guiding. Reminding ourselves that we have decided to go to any lengths to find a spiritual experience, we ask that we be given strength and direction to do the right thing, no matter what the personal consequences may be. We may lose our position, our position or reputation, or face jail, but we are willing. We have to be. We must not shrink at anything. Usually, however, other people are involved. Therefore, we are not to be the hasty and foolish martyr who would needlessly sacrifice others to save himself from the alcoholic pit. A man we know had remarried because of resentment and drinking. He had not paid alimony to his first wife. She was furious. She went to court and got an order for his arrest. He had commenced our way of life, had secured a position, and was getting his head above water. It would have been impressive heroics if he had walked up to the judge and said, "Here I am." We thought he ought to be willing to do that if necessary, but if he were in jail, he could provide nothing for either family. We suggested he write his first wife admitting his faults and asking forgiveness. He did, and also sent a small amount of money. He told her what he would try to do in the future. He said he was perfectly willing to go to jail if she insisted. Of course, she did not, and the whole situation has long since been adjusted. Before taking drastic action which might implicate other people to secure their consent, before taking drastic action which might implicate other people, we secure their consent. If we have obtained permission, have consulted with others, asked God to help, and the drastic step is indicated, we must not shrink. This brings to mind a story about one of our friends. While drinking, he accepted a sum of money from a bitterly hated business rival, giving him no receipt for it. He subsequently denied having received the money and used the incident as a basis for discrediting the man. He thus used his own wrongdoing as a means of destroying the reputation of another. In fact, his rival was ruined. He felt that he had done a wrong he could not possibly make right. If he opened that old affair, he was afraid it would destroy the reputation of his partner, disgrace his family, and take away his means of livelihood. What right had he to involve those dependent upon him? How could he possibly make a public statement exonerating his rival? After consultation with his wife and partner, he came to the conclusion that it was better to take those risks than to stand before his creator guilty of such ruinous slander. He saw that he had to place the outcome in God's hands, or he would soon start drinking again, and all would be lost anyhow. He attended church for the first time in many years. After the sermon, he quietly got up and made an explanation. His action met widespread approval, and today he is one of the most trusted citizens of his town. This all happened years ago.
So here's what I'm going to say about that story, guys. It's nice and it's obviously very valiant and it's a nice romantic, dramatic kind of story, but most of the time, the drastic step is not indicated. If you are here and thinking about taking the drastic step and just throwing yourself, in front of the vehicle, don't do it. Not yet. Talk to a sponsor, okay? I truly believe, I am a big believer that in step 9, we make direct amends wherever possible. And where it's not possible, I also believe in something called indirect amends. Now, I am not talking about living amends, okay? Because living amends can sometimes be a lot like half measures, okay? There are direct amends that we can make. There are indirect amends that we can make. Okay. And I'll share with you, when I was drinking, and using and, living, that life, I will say creative, with other people's credit cards. Okay. I was very creative with lots of credit cards. Okay. And it was on my step 8 list, and I had to do something about it. And it would have been one thing at that time of my life for me to just throw myself at the mercy of MasterCard or Visa or restaurants that I, on and on and on. I could have went and done that. And I would have faced charges and I would have got a criminal record and so on and so forth. And if the drastic step is indicated, I need to be willing to do it. And I think that I would have been willing to do it. However, I'll never forget my sponsor and his sponsor and my sponsor's sponsor's sponsor all sat down at a place called Kane's Harley Davidson Cafe in Calgary. And we sat down and cracked open a big book and we talked about this and we got it all sorted out and figured it out. And what we do in a situation like that, depending on the situation, is I don't necessarily have to make direct amends to the institution. What I can do is pay back a similar amount of money to the amount that I think I might have taken. And I'm not talking about millions of dollars here. I'm talking about hundreds, maybe thousands of dollars. But to me at that time, it was an unbelievable amount of money, more than I could ever think about paying back. Okay. Because I was on welfare at the time. Okay. And what we did and what we can do and what I consult my sponsees to do is rather than going directly to the source, I can find charities or fundraisers that are endorsed by that financial institution, and I can make a similar donation back in the amount of money that I think I may have taken from that organization. And rather than pay it back to that particular bank or that particular credit card, I can give, if they support the SPCA, I can support the SPCA and make a dollar amount anonymously for that amount. Okay. Or I can, it might be, youth soccer. I can make that amount and I can pay it back. Okay. Or say like the Boys and Girls Club is something that might be endorsed by, say, TD Bank, right? So maybe I owe money to TD Bank and they support the Boys and Girls Club, right, Charles? Right, Charles? Right? And we can pay back that same amount to the Boys and Girls Club. Okay. Whatever it is, okay, that's a way that we can make indirect amends if the drastic step is too drastic, because other times there are other people involved. Okay. If I would have, at that time of my life, it would have caused more damage and more harm to my friends and family and so on if I were to have gotten a criminal record and went to jail and so on and so forth. Thank God that didn't need to occur. But what I was taught is that there is this indirect way of making amends, and that's what we can do. So something for you all to consider, something to take to your sponsor and to talk about, okay? But again, we cannot dodge our creditors. We are liable to drink if we are afraid to face them. We are liable to drink if we are afraid to face them. I want everyone to hear me on that, okay? I have to take action on these, whether it's directly or indirectly, okay? Brad, back to you. And this next part, by the way, you can categorize this as sexual or relationship related. This next part of step 9 here, okay?
The chances are that we have domestic troubles. Perhaps we are mixed up with women in a fashion we wouldn't care to have advertised. We doubt if, in this respect, alcoholics are fundamentally much worse than other people. But drinking does complicate sex relations in the home. After a few years with an alcoholic, a wife gets worn out, resentful, and uncommunicative. How could she be anything else? The husband begins to feel lonely, sorry for himself. He commences to look around in the nightclubs or their equivalent for something besides liquor. Perhaps he is having a secret and exciting affair with the girl who understands. In fairness, we must say that she may understand, but what are we going to do about a thing like that? A man so involved often feels very remorseful at times, especially if he is married to a loyal and courageous girl who has literally gone through hell for him. Whatever the situation, we usually have to do something about it. If we are sure our wife does not know, should we tell her? Not always, we think. If she knows in a general way that we have been wild, should we tell her in detail? Undoubtedly, we should admit our fault. She may insist on knowing all the particulars. She will want to know who the woman is and where she is. We feel we ought to say to her that we have no right to involve another person. We are sorry for what we have done, and God willing, it shall not be repeated. More than that, we cannot do. We have no right to go further. Though there may be justifiable exceptions, and though we wish to lay down no rule of any sort, we have often found this is the best course to take. Our design for living is not a one-way street. It is as good for the wife as for the husband. If we can forget, so can she. It is better, however, that one does not needlessly name a person upon whom she can vent jealously. Perhaps there are some cases where the utmost frankness is demanded. No outsider can appraise such an intimate situation. It may be that both will decide that the way of good sense and loving kindness is to let bygones be bygones. Each might pray about it, having the other one's happiness uppermost in mind. Keep it always in sight that we are dealing with that most terrible human emotion, jealousy. Good generalship may decide that the problem be attacked on the flank rather than risk a face-to-face combat. If we have no such complication, there is plenty we should
Sorry,
do.
Brad. I just want to jump in here for a minute. So Bill Wilson, I quote this a lot. Bill Wilson says jealousy is the most terrible human emotion. That most terrible human emotion, jealousy. But if we're in a relationship and there has been infidelity, we are not just dealing with jealousy. Okay, let's be clear. We are dealing with betrayal trauma, is what we have caused. Okay, in another human being. Okay, and that's really difficult to deal with. Okay, and exceptionally painful. Betrayal trauma. It's not just jealousy. We've caused betrayal trauma to our partner with our infidelity. And so it does need to be handled very delicately. I am not going to appraise, there's not one answer fits all. Okay. I will say that if you are in a situation where there has been betrayal of trauma through your infidelity, and you are lucky enough that your partner is still speaking to you and wants to even think about giving it another shot, I would probably suggest to my sponsees that there are many very good therapists and I think a good marriage therapist can be very helpful in a situation like that, particularly if you were thinking of disclosing, so on and so forth. That kind of thing can be very helpful. In addition, obviously, to working with God, working with your sponsor, and everything else, it's a painful place to be. And my suggestion is for some of my sponsees that they engage. Page 133 says this God has abundantly supplied the world with great doctors and psychiatrists and psychologists of all kinds who can help us through these kinds of things. And that's one suggestion I offer to you. I encourage you to consider. I encourage you to consider. Okay. So this next part of step 9 here is, I title it family, home. And this will take us out through to the promises, and then we'll be finished reading, and I'll try to take us through a little bit of how we do with step 9 very quickly, so we finish at 7 p.m.
If we have no such complications, there is plenty we should do at home. Sometimes we hear an alcoholic say that the only thing he needs to do is to keep sober. Certainly he must keep sober, for there will be no home if he doesn't. But he is yet a long way from making good to the wife or parents whom for years he has so shockingly treated. Passing all understanding is the patience mothers and wives have had with alcoholics. Had this not been so, many of us would have no homes today, would perhaps be dead. The alcoholic is like a tornado roaring his way through the lives of others. Hearts are broken, sweet relationships are dead. Affections have been uprooted, selfish and inconsiderate habits have kept the home in turmoil. We feel a man is unlikely or unthinking when he says that sobriety is enough. He is like the farmer who came up who came up out of the cyclone cellar to find his home ruined. To his wife, he remarked, "Don't see anything the matter here, Ma. Ain't it grand the wind stopped blowing?" Yes, there is a long period of reconstruction ahead. We must take the lead. A remorseful mumbling that we are sorry won't fill the bill at all. We ought to sit down with the family and frankly analyze the past as we now see it, being very careful not to criticize them. Their defects may be glaring, but the chances are that our own actions are partly responsible. So we clean house with the family, asking each morning in meditation that our Creator show us the way of patience, tolerance, kindliness, and love. The spiritual life is not a theory. We have to live it. Unless one's family expresses a desire to live upon spiritual principles, we think we ought not to urge them. We should not talk incessantly to them about spiritual matters. They will change in time. Our behavior will convince them more than our words. We must remember that 10 or 20 years of drunkenness would make a skeptic out of anyone. There may be some wrongs we can never fully right. We don't worry about them if we can honestly say to ourselves that we would right them if we could. Some people cannot be seen. We send them an honest letter. And there may be a valid reason for postponement in some cases, but we don't delay if it can be avoided. We should be sensible, tactful, considerate, and humble without being servile or scraping. As God's people, we stand on our feet. We don't crawl before anyone. If we are painstaking
So
about
obviously, sorry, Brad, thank you. Obviously, guys, we're going to read the promises now, the step 9 promises. As we all know, and as I've kind of indicated, there's lots of promises in our book, not just these ones, but these are the ones that have, really kind of captured the hearts and the minds and the imaginations of alcoholics all around the world. Obviously, it's things like the promises, the step 9 promises that continue to convince me that this book was divinely inspired. Because these words, I believe, these words are not the words of a selfish, self-centered alcoholic. These words are inspired. This is, I believe, you don't have to believe this. And I hope this doesn't, have anyone bristle with antagonism, but I believe these are the words of God, what we're about to read. Okay. That's all I'm going to say about them, guys. Let's read through them, because I do want to talk. There's obviously a lot to say about the promises. I'm sure we could have an hour-long meeting just on the promises, but I want to talk very briefly, tactically, about how we execute a step 9. So let's just go through the promises, and then we'll get into that part of the study, okay?
if we are painstaking about this phase of our development, we will be amazed before we are halfway through. We are going to know a new freedom and a new happiness. We'll not regret the past, nor wish to shut the door on it. We will comprehend the word serenity, and we will know peace. No matter how far down the scale we have gone, we'll see how our experience can benefit others. That feeling of uselessness and self-pity will disappear. We will lose interest in selfish things and gain interest in our fellows. Self-seeking will slip away. Our whole attitude and outlook upon life will change. Fear of people and of economic insecurity will leave us. We'll intuitively know how to handle situations which used to baffle us. We'll suddenly realize that God is doing for us what we could not do for ourselves. Are these extravagant promises? We think not. They are being fulfilled among us, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. They will always materialize if we work for them.
All right, that takes us to the end of step 9. And let's talk now tactically about how we do a step 9. And I'm going to share with you guys what I was taught, and then what recently actually just changed for me with this just over the last couple of years. So, step 9 in the 12 and 12 gives us a lot of, step 9 in the big book, gives us some level of guidance, if you will, in terms of how to do a step 9, and about step 9. But in terms of actual specific directions, I was still lost. I was lost. And thank God, man. Thank God that I came from such strong sponsorship, that I had a sponsor who was able to teach me specifically what to do and how to do it. Okay. So first of all, when we talk about that step 8 list here, I'm just going to share it again. Okay. When we talk about the step 8 list, right now, later, maybe never, what my sponsor had me do once this was completed was to say, to pick 3 names on the right now list that I was already willing. Right now, I'm willing right now to go make those amends, who were not family, who were in my city. Okay. And he had me pick 3 of them. Okay. And that's what I do with my sponsees. Exactly that. I want you to find 3 that are in the city where you currently are living, that are not family, because I think and the reason I say not family, not for the first 3 anyway, is because I think it's good to get a couple of these under our belt and get some experience with doing it before we go talk to our mom, talk to our brothers and sisters and so on. Because those are really important. And I don't want to say any amends are more important than others and so on, but, we only get one mom. We only get one chance to do our first amend with our mom and dad or brother or sister or whoever it might be. So that's what we do. Okay. So, and as I said last night, what happens is as I do the right nows and I go and I went through these and I came back to my sponsor, and just like it says in the step 9 promises, I said, Gary, I'm amazed. And he said, yeah, that's because what they wrote in that book was true. And anyone who will do that work will get the results that the first 100 members got. As I like to say, guys, I'm not a miracle. I am not a miracle. Alcoholics Anonymous is the miracle. Okay. The 12 steps are the miracle. I'm just evidence of the miracle of Alcoholics Anonymous. Okay. So as I do these, then what happens is the laters become right nows, the maybes become laters, and little by slowly, the nevers start to become right nows, and my level of willingness changes. Okay. So when I picked those first 3 off the step 8 list, what happened? What did I do? Well, this is what I was taught. Okay. And this is what I call the step 9 questions. Okay. And you can take a screenshot of this or you can write them down or whatever, but this is what I do with my sponsees. And I've got 3 minutes. So we'll revisit this at the beginning of next week as well. Okay. So you see there at the bottom, I talk about direct versus indirect amends, of course. Okay. But the first thing I want to do is explain why I'm there to someone. Okay. It'll sound something like, as you may know, I'm in recovery. I'm a member of Alcoholics Anonymous. And in order for me to get over drinking, it's necessary for me to straighten out my past and to make amends to people that I've harmed. And I believe that you're one of those people. And that's what I'm here to talk to you about today. Okay. Now, you see, I have the word anonymity written there. That's because I don't have to tell them that I'm part of AA. I don't have to disclose to them that I'm an alcoholic if I think it's going to cause harm. And that's really up to my sponsor. Okay. And I want to talk to my sponsor about that. I can also say something like, I'm here today because I'm going through a process of looking back and reflecting on my life and making amends to people that I've harmed. I'm trying to straighten out my past where I can. And that's what I'm here to talk to you about today. Okay, great. Number 2, here's how I harmed you. Okay. And you'll see here, I write underneath that I want to tie it to a defect of character and I want to show evidence of change. Okay. When I do that. So it's not just that I stole the car. It's when I stole the car from you. I was very selfish and self-centered and dishonest when I did that. I want to recognize what the defects are. Okay. And then I want to show evidence of change. Okay. And I want you to know that today I'm a sober member in AA. I've been sober for whatever period of time. And I'm no longer a thief. I don't steal things from people anymore. Okay. Another thing to consider here, guys, is that it's not just amends of commission. It's amends of omission, things I didn't do, times I didn't show up, times I wasn't there. So when I didn't show up at your wedding, as I said that I would, because I was drinking, I want you to know that that was very selfish and inconsiderate, self-centered and dishonest of me to do that. And I want you to know that today I am the type of person who shows up for things that I'm invited to. And if I were ever invited to an event that you put on today, I'm the kind of guy I would be there for you today. I want you to know that. I would be there for you just as you have always been there for me. Okay. Number 3, are there any other ways that I harmed you? Okay. And then the most important thing here, guys, when I ask that question, are there any other ways that I've harmed you? I got to listen really close. Okay. Because it may be that what I think is the harm that I caused someone is not actually what harmed them the most. Okay. And you'll see I have step 6 and 7 written here. And that's because some of the most important information I ever got in terms of my own selfishness and self-centeredness were in this quiet moment of letting someone else tell me how my defects of character harm them. See, this is not my own mind now on a piece of paper and doing my inventory. This is reality for someone else and how I hurt them. And I need to listen. Okay. And this is what I mean, guys, when I say I make progress in steps 6 and 7 by doing steps 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12, particularly in this part of step 9. This will change my character. You better believe this process changes who I am. Okay. More than anything else that I can think of, with the exception possibly of step 12. I believe that. So number 4, what do I need to do to make things right and to amend our relationship? As I indicated, most times, 9 times out of 10, they're going to say, this was good. This is fine. I appreciate you coming to talk to me. We're good. Just stay sober, keep doing what you're in AA, and we're good. And that's all that's required. Sometimes they ask other things and so on. And I'll talk to my sponsor and we'll address that. Okay. Lastly, guys, I've often said the only challenge with step 8 is that I can't necessarily make a list of all the people that I've harmed. I can only make a list of the people that I know that I've harmed, that I believe that I've harmed. There may be others that I'm not aware of. And so the last thing that I think is important here, and this is what I've just added in the last couple of years, and this came to me through another sponsee. When he went and made amends, he came back and he said, I said, okay, what did they ask you to do to make amends? He said, actually, they suggested a couple other people that I should go make amends to. And I was like, brilliant. I need to add a 5th question to the direction. Okay. Now, the last thing, can you think of anyone else that I need to make amends to? Okay. And if they give me new people, I add those to the list. Okay. So we went through that quickly, guys. We'll revisit it again next week before we get into step 10. And I love you all. That's it for tonight. Now, don't run away, everyone. Don't run away, because we're going to end the meeting tonight with the Lord's Prayer. And then my favorite part of the week is always going around the room. Everyone just introduce yourself, say hello. The custom here is to introduce yourself with your first name, the name, the city that you're living in, and your home group. Okay. So your name, city that you're living in, and your home group. And we'll end the meeting tonight with the Lord's Prayer.